welcome to another episode of Living in Rockland Live. I'm so excited to bring Sarah from Baby to Go. She's the founder. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to you, Sarah. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your name, where you work, where you live.
Sure. Hi. My name is Sarah Ludwig. I've lived in Rockland almost my whole life, and I live in Nyack right now, and I own Baby to Go. So I do childbirth education and labor doula work and postpartum doula work and all sorts of baby things in Rockland and Westchester and Bergen counties.
Awesome. I love it. I always saw you I have a 3-year-old, so I always saw you when I gave birth. I'm like, the next time around, I'm going to reach out to her. So tell us a little bit of your backstory and how you founded Baby to Go.
Sure. So I, a million lifetimes ago, was a teacher. I taught third, fourth, fifth grade at various times, after school drama. And then I got pregnant with my son, and I had a not so hot pregnancy and then a kind of traumatic labor and delivery experience. And I had taken the class with the hospital, and they taught me how to be a really good patient at the hospital, but not really the breadth and scope of my options. And realistically, medically, nothing would be different, right? We can't control outcomes. Nothing would have changed as far as my medical status, but I was traumatized. I didn't really have an empowered voice in my care. I wasn't a part of a dialogue about what was happening to me. And so I didn't love that I wasn't aware of things that I should have been aware of. And so I thought, boy, there's got to be something better than that. And so I started teaching childbirth education, and I'm old. So this was before Facebook was a thing. I mean, Facebook existed, but there were no local groups or anything. And so that postpartum period was very isolating. And so I started teaching childbirth education, and I did that for a few years. And then while I was in labor with my daughter, the school I was working in announced that that was going to be their final year. They weren't going to open the following year. And I thought, well, that's it then. I don't want to go teach someplace else. I don't believe that I can put in what I like to as a teacher and also parent 2 young children. I was the teacher that went to kids' ballet recitals and soccer games, and I can't have 30 kids and then also have my own 2 children and be fair to everyone.
Yeah,
and
tough.
So at that point, I expanded. I just kind of pivoted. And so my childbirth education clients were like, this is great and all, but it's a lot. And if you could just come with us, that would be cool. And so I went and did training and got certified and started doing labor doula work. And then they were like, but now we have a baby.
Now what? What do we do?
Help us. And so I added in postpartum, and it has grown over the years. I do all kinds of workshops. I'm passionate about safe sleep and car seat safety. And so I like to say, if I don't have an answer for you about a question about pregnancy or birth or newborns, I know 6 people who do.
So you have a really good network of people.
Yeah, I'm the vice president of the Hudson Valley Birth Network. So I work with a huge team of perinatal professionals, from midwives to IBCLCs to other doulas to pelvic floor physical therapists. So that's the name Baby to Go was really sort of like a one-stop, I can connect you to everything.
That's awesome. I mean, it's I gave birth 3 years ago, and I didn't even know what a birth doula was. I would have thought I would have been more informed, and now you start to hear about it more. Can you tell us a little bit about what a birth doula does and how you contribute to everyone's experience?
So I see my role as helping families feel calm and confident through their entire process. And so I can't, again, guarantee outcomes. I think there's kind of this connotation of birth doulas that we're waving crystals over your belly under a full moon and whispering incantations from the birth goddess in your ear. And like, that's not my vibe. If you want her, I know her and I can connect you, but that's not who I am. I do unmedicated births. I do planned cesareans. I do epidurals. I help through everything. I offer emotional, physical, and informational support. And so a lot of people, especially first-time parents, have a misconception as to what the medical community is going to offer when they go to the hospital. And so sometimes I think what I do is what people imagine the labor and delivery nurse might
Right.
do. But the labor and delivery nurses, who are amazing, by
Right.
the way, they are there to follow the doctor's protocols. They work for the hospital, not for you. So they are implementing policies and procedures that are not related to your care. They also have multiple patients. So the big thing there is that they're not going to be with you the whole time. They're not going to come to your house ahead of time, find out your hopes, your dreams, your priorities, your preferences. They're not going to help you set up the nursery. They're not going to come to your house a week after birth and make sure that you're doing okay. They are there to monitor the baby's heart rate and really just make sure your IVs are all good and everything's
Right.
good. And I am there the entire time um, to help with coping measures, to help with once people have an epidural and you don't have the physical impetus, like that messaging telling you to move around. I tell people once you have an epidural, I'm going to roll you like a rotisserie chicken, because if you have a tight ring on your hand, you don't just stand there and like wait for it to come off. You wiggle
Right.
it around. So same thing with the baby. The baby is doing their own wiggling inside there. But when we are unmedicated, we're standing, we're moving, our bodies are telling us to go. Once
Right.
you have the epidural, you lose that messaging. And so now you're just kind of standing and waiting for the ring to come down. And so every half hour or 45 minutes, I change position. I help keep the pelvis open, that kind of thing.
That's really interesting and really, I mean, just as a mom for me, I know that it's like I had no idea and I wish I did. I really wish I did. So what kind of training do you guys have to go through to become a doula?
So there is no New York State licensure,
Okay.
and there isn't in most of the states. If any, I can't think of. I don't know because I only work in New York and New
Right,
Jersey.
right.
But we are non-medical, so there is a range of what training people go through.
Okay.
There are certification options, and certification has in the past few years become more of a thing because of COVID protocols
Right.
and limiting who's in the hospitals. So that has become um, more mandatory, I would say, although you don't have to be certified to be a doula, because
Okay.
basically we are like ice chip fetchers and question. But that being said, I do think that you should have some experience with birth. You should have
Right.
some training. So there are a whole bunch of different certification groups. There's doulas of North America, which is DONA, which is one of the most well-known. There's Pro Doula, there's BEST, which I'm certified through. There is childbirth educate like international. There's
Okay. So there's
a
a
whole
ton.
bunch of certifying groups, and unfortunately right now there's not really so much regulation and accreditation, so it's basically on reputation.
Okay.
And you want to find a certifying body that aligns with your
Your wants and needs, right? Like
yeah,
what
your ideals, and you don't want to be tied to an ethical practice that you're not comfortable with.
right.
So you can find the group that's right for you.
It almost reminds me of like a therapist for pregnancy. like where it's
Similar. It's similar. And perinatal mood disorders are such a huge, huge problem. And it's like 20% of moms at least experience some kind of perinatal mood disorder, be it
Mm,
postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression. And those can be really significant. And one of the risk factors is how you feel about your birth experience. So it doesn't, and this is interesting, it doesn't necessarily have to do with medical trauma. So you could have an unexpected cesarean and be totally fine mentally if you feel like you are on the same page, if you feel confident that that was what had to happen to be safe and to be the right birth for you. But if you didn't have an empowered voice in your care, if you weren't part of that dialogue, then that can be a challenge and increase your risk factor for perinatal mood disorders. And so I do some education prenatally with my clients. A lot of people do like a birth plan, right? But
mhm,
not as many people think ahead and create a postpartum plan.
mhm.
And if you are one of those 20% or higher who experience perinatal mood disorders, who are having trouble and struggling with postpartum depression, at that point, it's hard to gather resources. You can't build a boat while you're drowning, right?
Right.
And so if you think ahead and have an action plan in place, especially if you have risk factors like previously diagnosed postpartum anxiety or depression or a complicated pregnancy or any other sort of risk factor, then you have an idea of what to do. And that's part of my postpartum plan, in addition to physical logistics, like what are you going to eat and who's going to take care of the house and,
Right.
that kind of thing.
That's amazing. You're selling me. So, my other question was, is this something that potentially could be covered by insurance for others, or is this some pay out of pocket thing or
So, New York State just put into law, there's a Medicare program that's starting. I don't know if you're aware, but there's a maternal mortality crisis in this country specifically for Black women.
Mm,
And so there's a variety of programs being put into place to try to address that challenge. And one of the things that they have found is doulas um, increase your positive outcomes, like
mhm,
evidence-based statistically. And so there are some programs where insurance will cover, but again, we are not medical care
right,
providers, so we don't have insurance codes and things like that.
right,
Some insurances do cover a portion of childbirth education, postpartum support, birth support. So definitely reach out to your insurance company and ask. But also, many of us, myself included, take HSA and FSA funds, and
oh,
those
that's
are
great to
like
know.
legit. And so, when I have clients that are interested in having insurance cover at least part of my fee, they pay me directly, and I give them like an itemized invoice to go
Right,
back
so
with the language that the insurance companies need.
that's awesome. Alright, well, as my daughter's screaming in the background.
You've heard my dogs go off a couple times, probably. I hope not. I
No, you're good. Let's talk about your services. I was like scoping out your site and I see you
Mhm.
offer a lot of things. You're not just a doula, you have like you said, postpartum and virtual support. Tell us a little bit about like some other things that you do
Sure.
besides the,
So
birthing plans and
there are the doulas that most people think of when they think of doulas is birth doulas, which is part of what I do. I also offer postpartum doula support. Some other doulas do both. Some other doulas just do postpartum support. There are abortion doulas. There are death doulas. There are infertility doulas. There are doulas that are available to help you transition through most milestones in life.
mm,
In particular, I do birth and I do postpartum. So for some clients, I do everything. I'm there from pregnancy, I'm there for the birth, I'm there for postpartum. For some clients, I am only there for postpartum. And I offer assistance in transitioning, whether this is your first child or your Michelle Duggar and they're like walking right out of there. Every newborn is in addition to the household that changes the dynamic of your home. And so you need to find new routines and what works for you. And especially if you have older children, how to manage bedtime with like big brother or big sister and also have a nursing baby. It's my son walking through. So it is a time where just having an extra set of hands. I do a lot of just listening to processing about birth, normalizing the postpartum experience. Like, hey, this is what my baby's doing right now? Is that normal? Like, what is going on here? Because even if you have another baby, all babies are different. And so what worked for one may not work for another. I am not a personal chef or a maid by any stretch of the imagination. You could look at my house to know that. But I make it a priority when I'm in a client's home to make sure that their counter is cleared off and their dishes are done so that they have, sometimes when things are cluttered around you, it's stressful.
Yeah.
I can, throw a load of laundry in. I can hold the baby while you shower and nap. I answer questions about lactation, about sleep, about all of the different things so that you can focus on this newborn bonding time as a family.
I love that.
It's sort of like, it's not like having a mom come in because sometimes that experience is a little fraught.
Right.
And sometimes moms have their own ideas of how you should do things.
Right.
Right.
How you should do it.
I don't have a stake in this game. How you raise your baby is up to you. The choices you make, as long as they're safe,
Right.
that's your business. So I'm there to support whatever you're doing and offer an extra set of hands. So it's like having your favorite aunt come over.
I love that. I also saw you have a virtual support class as well. Is that still going on, or was that a COVID thing?
It started as a COVID thing, and that was when it was most utilized, but it has turned into, I've had clients from outside my immediate service area who have used that option in order to hire me. So it has been a way of branching out. It's honestly not something I do quite frequently, because hands-on is really, I feel best in these particular situations, but I've had clients who really wanted me in particular or maybe didn't have someone close to them. And so I've had that work out distance wise as well.
That's awesome. And you still do the educational classes, or now are you just really more? Yeah. So you still host classes, and I also see you do car seat. Are you certified with that?
Yep. I'm a certified child passenger safety technician instructor. And so I have taught the certification class for, mostly it's in our area. It's interesting because nationwide, it's a lot of moms who do this. In our particular area, it seems to be mostly law enforcement and firefighters who take on the CPST role. But I can teach those classes. And then I do in-home workshops about getting to know your car seat, expectations, laws, best practices, and then installation assistance as well.
That's amazing. I'm loving this. It's like you really are like a one-stop shop for the little
baby
ones.
To go. Like so when I started, when I was just doing the childbirth education classes, I started with teaching baby wearing using a carrier. And I was a stay-at-home mom who never stayed at home. And so you can, go about your life and do your thing. And it's sort of just become this bigger company.
I love it. Well, where can we find you, and where can we connect with you if some people are interested in using your services?
Awesome. So pro tip, if you are starting a company, don't put hyphens in your URL because it sucks. It's the worst. Baby to go without hyphens was not available. It's still not as a URL. So I was like, oh, baby-to-go.com. That will work.
That works.
And now I've had it for 10 years, so I'm hesitant to change it to anything else, but it's kind of annoying. I'm also on facebook.com/baby to go. That's super easy. And Instagram, my handle is at baby_to_go.
Perfect.
And I have so much fun on Instagram. I love it. So
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely give you a follow. I'm sure there's some good informational content on there.
there's a lot of tips. I'm also like, again, I'm not that, crunchy sort of whispering incantations. Like I tend to drop an F bomb every now and again.
Love it.
I am humorous. I think that a lot of times parenting is stressful, but also there's joy and it's funny. It's so funny. And so I like to bring that in.
Bring the light in, because sometimes you get,
Mhm.
like, the kids tantruming and you're like, "What?" And then you forget to enjoy all the
Yeah.
little things. Well, Sarah,
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time today. I'm so excited to get all of your services out there and let people know that this is available. Like, look, I didn't even know 3 years ago, and I'm excited to share this with other, soon-to-be moms and even moms that are already moms. So, thanks so much
Yeah.
for your time today.
Awesome.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Bye, Sarah.